Hey everyone, this is Carol Hunter, and look, I just wanted to do a very quick recap for those people who weren't able to make it to the overview sessions over the last couple of weeks. It's all about the QLT online standards and the things that you really need to do to get your sites up and ready for 2016-60 so that they meet the QLT online standards, and the kinds of help that you can get to be able to make sure that that happens. First of all, I think it's really useful to look at the reasons behind the QLT online standards. And whenever I look at standards, I start to think, well, why are we doing this? Where did this all come from? Is this just someone's thought bubble? That there's got to be some reason behind it. So one of the many different kinds of sites and I guess kinds of metrics that are being used to evaluate our subjects and our courses is this QLT site, the Quality Indicators for Learning and Teaching. This one has a little bit more importance in some ways because it's actually available and accessible by students and by parents. So people who are thinking about going to uni can come into this site and compare institutions with each other and make choices for themselves about which course they actually want to do. So it's kind of an important site for us. One of the things that we've seen in this is that in CSU we're doing really well in almost all of the areas across the board that this QLT site is looking at. So this is based on student experience and the percentage of students who are agreeing that they're satisfied in each of these areas. Right across the board we're doing as well, if not better in many cases, than a lot of the other institutions. There's one great big gap in the middle of that, and this is the same as other institutions as well, but we're particularly low in it compared to how we're going in all of the other areas, and that area is learner engagement. So what they're judging in that, there's a whole lot of questions similar to our question 3 in the student experience survey about students being able to have the opportunity to learn from their peers, the opportunities to interact with other students. And so that's, I guess, a basis of where a lot of these QLT standards are coming from. They're about engaging students. They're about providing opportunities for students to interact with each other and for you to interact with each other. So what are the 3 QLT standards? Okay, so the 3 ones that we're particularly looking at in the lead up to 2016-60 and beyond that are landing pages, peer-to-peer interaction and staff-to-student interaction. So the first one, and I'm just going to do a really brief overview here, and I'll do some separate screencasts around each of them and go through a whole range of different examples. But the KPI 9 says students experience initial quality assured subject interact to site landing pages and a basic outline. Now that basic outline is really talking about navigation. So it's about the landing page that's on your Interact site, but it's also about how the navigation is set up as well. I think there's 2 really important questions to think about when you're looking at your landing page. It's about the elements that you need to include in the landing page, but it's how you want to use that landing page as well. And I think that's where the opportunity comes in here. So it's not just about, well, have I got this on the landing page or have I got that on the landing page, but it's thinking about what's the purpose of your landing page. And there's many different purposes. You might use it to really promote your teacher presence. You might use it as a way of really engaging students. You might use it as a way of providing ongoing updates around the course. You might use it as a way of establishing a subject identity, or of even incorporating links to the professional network for students by incorporating various social feeds. There's lots of different ways you can really use that landing page. And often I think we miss that opportunity to really think about it because we just do what we've always done before. Similar to the way we can walk into a lecture theatre and automatically the area or the space pushes you in a particular direction just because of the way it's already been used in the past. But as we know, lecture theatres don't only have to be a space for lecturing. I'm just going to show you one simple example in relation to the landing page. Now what we've done is we've set up a number of different kinds of templates, I guess, because what what we've found, and when I say we, I'm talking about the QLT leaders, is that the landing pages, the content is often really, really good, what people are putting in the content, but because of the, I guess, the limitations of Interact 2, that often means that the pages don't look that great. There's lots of gaps in there, things aren't placed particularly well, and it doesn't look that great. So what we've done is we've worked with Tim Clapdoor, who's the technology lead with You Imagine, and we've created a series of, I guess, models, if you like, for looking at for setting up different kinds of landing pages that all have different purposes. This is a really simple one, and if you want to have a look at some of the other ones, come in and listen to the next screencast about KPI 9 landing pages, where I'll go through a whole range of different kinds of examples. But this one's really, really simple, and what you'll see in there is there's an area for contact information. There's a photo of the academic, and that could equally be a video of the academic. There's a blurb about the course, a bit of an overview about the subject, I should say. This is obviously doesn't have much content in it, so it's very, very brief here. And there's also the name and the subject code in there as well. Also over here in the navigation, you'll see that the contacts tool is there, so students can access that all the time to get the full contact information. And the navigation has also been set up really clearly. So there's different sections. All the information about interacting and so on is in the subject community area. The areas that are around the learning content are all put clearly in that different section. Additional CSU support is in another section. So it's very easy and very clear for people to be able to, for students to be able to go in and find what they need. So that's a really basic landing page, but it's also a really effective one, and one that would meet the online QLT standards for KPI 9. So again, what you need to do for all cohorts with this area is to make sure your landing page is functional. The navigation needs to be clear, using section headings, grouping common elements. It also needs to be informative, so include the basic heading, subject code and name, your name, contact and bio, preferably in the contacts tool, but you can put it on the page if that's what's preferred in your school, but preferably using the contacts tool so students always know where to go in their subject sites to get that information, and a basic overview and introduction of the subject, and that can be any format. Then it needs to be engaging, so including some multimedia, whether it's an image, an audio through an audio file, or a video that adds meaning. So it's not just there as decoration, but it actually adds meaning to the page. And again, more about that in the separate screencast around KPI 9, and a lot more examples and a lot more opportunities that you can play around with. So KPI 11, this is the second online QLT standard. And it says students experience a subject that provides the opportunity for peer-to-peer interaction in the online space. Again, breaking that down, there's two really important things that you need to think about in relation to this one. First is, how can you use purposeful interaction to assist students in successfully completing assessments and learn for each other? So the idea behind this is that it's not just a matter of putting up a forum for the sake of having students interacting with each other, because we all know that that's not particularly successful. It's about thinking, how do I want these students to interact with each other? What kinds of interaction can help these students more successfully complete their assessment items? So purposeful is really important in this. The second part of it is, what elements do you need to include, regardless of how you're going to use it? Because of course there's many ways and many different options that you can use to get students to interact with each other in a purposeful way. Regardless of your strategy chosen or your technology chosen, what elements need to be there? Okay, so again, going back to a really simple baseline example, the discussion board. We have discussion boards in every single subject site. Okay, so having a discussion board and providing an opportunity for students to interact would meet the baseline level, but you can't, to meet that baseline standard, it's not just about providing a forum, having a main forum and just reacting to students' questions in a very responsive way. That wouldn't meet the baseline standards. What is important is that that discussion board is designed in a purposeful way, so that students go into the discussion board. There are prompts for them to be able to interact with each other. Maybe that's prompts through your modules in your topics. It could be sitting outside of that, but generally there's got to be something that's initiated, and it's a purposeful discussion. It's not just a responsive Q&A. In this example up here, it's got students leading discussions. So the initial forum is where the academic is modelling how she wants the students to interact with each other. Following that, each of the students are in groups, and each group leads the rest of the cohort in a particular discussion area, prompted by initial questions that are in the modules. So again, it's very much a purposeful interaction. There's prompts there, it's focusing, the academic is initiating discussions, and that's what will lead you to, whether it's student-led or not, that's what will lead you to meeting the standards here. Of course, it doesn't have to be a discussion board. It could be online meeting, it could be a range of external technologies, it could be chat rooms and so on. The point here is having an opportunity for interaction. So, the standards. It's about having a clear strategy and implementing that to encourage students to interact with each other beyond just asking questions on the discussion board. In terms of designed interaction, you should be providing students with an opportunity for interaction, regardless of the technology used. And there should be, in terms of a level of interaction, there should be evidence of online student interaction, such as students responding to each other in the discussion boards, or again, whatever technology. Now, some of that is outside of the academics' control, of course. Their students have a whole range of reasons that they might not be responding, but generally that's not going to be the case with all students. So there should be if the interaction is designed well, there should be a reasonable level of interaction happening in that subject, knowing that some students won't be interacting for a range of reasons that are outside the academics' control. All right, so last one, KPI 12. Students experience a subject that provides a structured opportunity for staff to student interactions in the online space. So it's not just about students interacting with each other, it's also about how you interact with students. Again, two really key areas that's important to focus on here. What kinds of interaction do students need or want from you? Not just going back to autopilot and do what people just assume is expected in the subject, but really thinking about, in this context, for this subject, for this cohort of students, what do they need or want from me? Then, what elements do you need to include, regardless of how the decisions that you make in terms of staff to student interaction? Again, going back to the most basic example, are announcements. We all use announcements, well, most of us use announcements in subject sites. It's an obvious form of staff to student communication, and it would be one part of going towards meeting the requirements. But there's a couple of different areas. It's not just about announcements. So what you need to do in terms of all cohorts is firstly around communication. You should be communicating subject information with students clearly and regularly, and that's the part of the announcements. But it also could include having a dynamic landing page. It could include interacting with students through social media, such as academics who have set up Facebook groups for their students or Twitter feeds. Regardless, again, of the technology, regardless of the strategy, it's about regular, clear communication, not over-communication, not under-communication, because both of those can cause problems, but having clear, regular communications and making sure it's clear in the site how you're communicating with students. Facilitation is the other half of this standard. There should be some planned strategies for building teacher presence throughout the session, and there's a range of different ways that you can do that. It might be through online meetings, it might be through the landing page, it might be through the discussion forum, it might be through a range of other mechanisms. But you should be initiating discussions as well, not just responding to queries, and making sure that you respond to questions at least once a week. So that's the 3 different areas. Again, in each of these, I'm creating a separate screencast that go through a wide range of examples, and I've pulled these examples from right across our new faculty, Business, Justice and Behavioural Science, so that there's things there that you probably won't have seen before, because there'll be things coming from different schools that haven't really been part of our faculty before. And so I really encourage you to go and look at that. In those screencasts, I'm also putting together a range of simple tips. Just as I'm going through and looking at sites, there are some common things that I see are just small things, small changes, and a lot of this really, to meet these baseline standards, it's just very small, little simple changes, little simple tips that can just make sure that your site is taken to that next level and improve that one bit further, and so that it not only meets the standards but goes a little bit beyond that as well. So they're the 3 areas: landing pages, peer-to-peer interactions and staff-to-student interactions. The important things for you to know. Okay, so on the 27th of June, there's going to be a quality check on the landing pages. Now that's the point where that we're going to go in and look at all of the subject sites, and this is all of them right across the faculty, and just do a quick check on whether each site has met the standards or not. So it's really important that you have your landing page ready by the 27th of June. At that point, if there are sites that haven't met the standard, you'll get some feedback around that to make sure that your landing page does meet the standard by the start of session. But the important thing to know is that that won't change the evaluation of the site. And this is quite important for the schools, because it's an institutional initiative here where the institution is trying to get all subject sites and to make sure that the faculty has a high percentage of sites meeting these standards or meeting these expectations. So it's really important for the school and for the faculty that you do everything you can to get your landing page right for the 27th of June. We'll be doing exactly the same thing for the mid-session break. For interaction, that will be happening in the mid-session break though. So that's both peer-to-peer interaction as well as staff-to-student interaction. And the quality check there, again, mid-session break is when that will be happening. All right, so what kinds of support are there for you? We set up a site called QLT, Quality Learning and Teaching Online. And this is where we're providing ongoing advice and tips. Again, a lot of the things around these particular standards around improving learner engagement, about really boosting our results on that question 3 in the SES, which is important for us individually as well as important for our schools and faculties, are really small things. So what we've tried to do is pull a lot of those small tips and hints into a blog format here. You can search for individual tips in particular areas. You can also hear what other academics are doing. And again, we've looked through, and this is across all 3 of the new faculties, we've looked through sites right across the institution, and we've picked out some of the best strategies that we've seen. Now, not all of the best strategies are in there, so if you're not appearing yet, don't worry, we're coming to you. But it's a space where people are sharing what they're doing. It's all really short, quick screencasts. They don't take very long, 5 minutes usually max, but you can just get some ideas, and it might be something that might also really work for you in your site. Okay, so we've had overview sessions over the last few weeks. Again, this is a quick summary of those overview sessions. I'm also going through and giving individual feedback. Now, this is a really big task across the entire faculty, so bear with me in this. I'm going with this as fast as I can, and I'm targeting particular groups of subjects at a time. So again, I will do my absolute best to do that for all subjects, but given the amount of work that's involved in that, I'm not going to make any promises about it just now, but I am doing my very best for that. Okay, discipline-based sharing. We're having small group sessions, and these will be taking place during June. That's a chance for us to get together in groups of people who are sharing the same discipline and discuss discipline appropriate strategies for particularly for peer-to-peer interaction. A lot of the things with landing pages as well as staff-to-student interaction, they're quite common, and common strategies are really typical across the entire university. But when it comes to peer-to-peer interaction, that's a little bit different. And often what we find is there's very discipline-specific ways and different discipline-specific pedagogies, if you like, in relation to the best ways to get students to interact. And so that's what that's about. It's about giving a chance for us to share with each other and to discuss a whole range of different kinds of strategies that can be used. Then just before the subjects go live, there'll be some drop-in sessions as well, where if you wanted some last tips on getting your landing pages up, if you want someone to come in and help you with a few technical things with your landing pages, that's the place for it to come there. Okay. Next one. Oh, okay, so just a little bit more about the blog. The other thing about the blog is we've set up a community. We just didn't want it to be a space, a read-only space, if you like. We wanted to be a space where people could interact with each other, and that's coming from requests from academics. So you can see on the right here, you're able to log in. You can register if you haven't registered before in the site, and then by registering and logging in, you'll then be able to participate in the forums. You can ask questions, you can create new topics around each of them, you can share things that you're doing that you may not have seen shared in the blog, but it's a space for people to interact with each other and have discussions around some of these standards. The other thing is, if there's only one QLT lead across each faculty, so if for some reason that we can't get to you and provide feedback to you or provide support to you in time, go to the DSL website. They do have a new service request form. If you need support in anything and you need it sooner than what can be provided by the QLT leads, go to that form and you'll be able to get some support there as well. Last but not least, keep calm. The standards are actually incredibly achievable. I think there's a really good reason behind it. I think it can benefit us all. It can benefit the faculties by making improvements in these areas, but it also can benefit us individually by improving our own results in question 3 on those SES. There's obviously benefits to doing that, but also getting that right and spending a little bit more time on those landing pages and our interaction strategies, I find tends to make teaching a just much more rewarding experience in itself anyway. So I hope the work that we're doing around these 3 QLT standards is of benefit to you. Please get in contact with me if you've got any questions. When you get some feedback, if it raises things that you're not sure about, again, come back to me and ask some questions, get some responses. I'll be more than happy to talk with you about it. But I don't think this is going to be overly challenging for anyone. I think it's going to be a matter of just some small, simple changes, which I think you'll probably all really enjoy doing. Okay. That's all for now. Look out for the KPI 9, 11 and 12 specific screencasts. They give a lot more information and go through heaps of examples and tips about things that you can do. Thanks.